15 Arizona towns. The odds are you've heard of 2 of them, maybe 3. The ones retirement guides talk about are Scottsdale, Phoenix, the polished Tucson suburbs, places built around resort communities and lifestyle amenities where HOA fees silently erode a fixed income and the median home price puts entry out of reach for most people living on a pension and Social Security. 100 miles outside those corridors, a completely different version of Arizona operates under a completely different set of rules, and the retirees who know about it are paying a fraction of what the advertised version costs. Towns where raw land runs cheaper per acre than a used car. Towns where Arizona's own tax code leaves your Social Security untouched, freezes your property assessment for 3-year stretches, and taxes everything else at a flat 2.5%. Towns where elevation, solar exposure, and aquifer policy turn upfront infrastructure investment into decades of near zero. Monthly costs. Some of these places require cash and physical work in exchange for a monthly burn rate that barely registers. One uses a national border to cut healthcare and grocery spending in half. One is a mountain town priced like a forgotten mining community because it never became a resort. Several sites so deep in land surplus that the price per acre no longer feels like a real number. Not every model here fits every retiree. By the end of this, you'll know what's actually within reach and what it realistically costs to get there. Here are 15 dirt cheap Arizona farmhouse places you can retiree for almost free. Willcox. Willcox sits in the wide agricultural valley of southeastern Cochise County, flanked by the Dragoon Mountains to the west and the Chiricahua Range to the east. What makes the surrounding unincorporated land financially unusual has nothing to do with the town center. Cochise County's Rural Residential Owner-Builder Amendment changes the economics of construction on parcels of 4 or more acres. Property owners can invoke Option 2 and build a dwelling without county review of construction plans and without standard building code inspections. That's documented county policy, not informal tolerance. In a typical American county, the administrative layer of residential construction, permit fees, phased inspections, approved materials lists, adds tens of thousands of dollars before the first wall goes up. Under this amendment, a retiree with savings can build a straw bale farmhouse or fully customized structure using salvaged materials without a standard inspector in a site. Retirees have built functional homes in this zone for around $50,000. One constraint deserves naming directly. Without a certificate of occupancy, a standard bank won't issue a mortgage. This is a cash play. If you're debt-free and drawing from retirement savings, the land around Willcox offers the most permissive regulatory environment in Arizona and some of the cheapest per acre prices in the state. St. John's. Apache County's high desert sits at nearly 6,000 feet of elevation, and St. John's is the county seat serving as the primary hub for the vast ranch subdivisions stretching into the Woodland Valley and River Springs areas. Those subdivisions were platted decades ago and have accumulated years of minimal demand. The result, 37-acre parcels regularly list for under $18,000 with maintained road access. On a per-acre basis, this is among the cheapest privately owned land in the continental United States. The elevation matters directly for retirement budgeting. At nearly 6,000 feet, St. John's runs 4 genuine seasons: mild summers, cold winters, meaningful precipitation. The extreme cooling demands that drive energy costs in low desert Phoenix don't apply here, which reduces one of the largest upfront capital costs in any off-grid setup. Apache County formally welcomes alternative construction methods: cordwood, rammed earth, cob. Construction. A retiree can acquire 37 acres for under $18,000 and build a heavily insulated farmhouse from materials sourced on the site under a framework the county explicitly supports. The total pathway from land purchase to completed home is achievable at a cost that wouldn't cover a down payment in most American housing markets. Concho. Concho sits southwest of St. John's in the same Apache County high desert, under the same regulatory framework, but with a land configuration that suits a different type of retiree. Where St. John's trends toward parcels in the 30 to 40 acre range, the Concho Valley offers 1-acre lots running between $4,000 and $8,500. Lower upfront land cost, smaller footprint, faster path to a livable property. For retirees who don't want 37 acres to manage, who want enough land for a farmhouse, a garden, and privacy, privacy. Concho's price range offers a realistic starting point. The elevation and climate benefits of the Apache County high desert apply equally here, as does the county's openness to alternative construction methods. A retiree can purchase a lot for under $9,000, install a small shed structure as a temporary base, and build the permanent farmhouse over a season or two. The commitment is staged, not total. Sanders. Sanders occupies the western edge of Apache County near the Navajo Nation boundary, and it carries the most extreme land prices in a county already known for low costs. Parcels in the 10 to 20 acre range turn up between roughly $10,000 and $15,000. Low density, minimal infrastructure expectation. The case for Sanders is land volume at minimum capital outlay, a retiree who wants genuine acreage as a buffer, room for solar, a well, a septic system, a small orchard, space that won't be developed around them, can acquire it here for a price that represents one of the lowest land costs in the American West. Apache County's alternative building framework applies in Sanders as throughout the county. The remote character requires more self-sufficiency than St. John's or Concho, but the cost floor it produces is unmatched anywhere else on this list. Salome. Salome sits on the flat desert plains of La Paz County in western Arizona. Rural agricultural zoning dominates, regulatory friction is low, and land prices reflect the complete absence of municipal services. An 80-acre off-grid parcel can be found for around $49,500. What you're buying has no city water, no utility grid, no sewer connection. You provide all of it. That's the mechanism, not the drawback. A 5-kilowatt solar system with battery storage runs between $12,000 and $18,000 after federal tax credits. Arizona's 7 to 8 peak sun hours per day make that system among the most productive in the country across a 25-year warranty period. The monthly electric bill it replaces stops existing on installation day. Water presents a choice with a known cost on each side. Drilling a solar-powered well delivers near zero marginal cost per gallon after installation. Where geology makes drilling expensive, hauled water is the established alternative. A cistern for around $5,000 and professional delivery that many La Paz County residents keep under $30 a month. Not a temporary workaround, but their permanent approach. An anaerobic septic system installs for $3,000 to $8,000 and runs at near zero operating cost. Once the full infrastructure stack is in place, monthly expenses at a Salome homestead can stay below a few $100s. Bouse. Bouse is a small La Paz County community a short drive from Salome, operating under the same rural agricultural zoning but with a land configuration that suits retirees who want to buy into a site rather than build from zero. Where Salome leans toward large, raw parcels, Bouse offers lots with existing wells and electrical hookups. A parcel of nearly 25 acres with a functioning well and electric service has appeared in this area for around $140,000, higher than raw desert land, but with the most capital-intensive infrastructure work already completed by a previous owner. The Harquahala and Granite Wash Mountains break the horizon from Bouse in a way the flat Salome Plain doesn't offer. Over years of retirement in one location, that visual character matters. The Quartzsite proximity, solar conditions, and zoning that make Salome work apply equally here. Quartzsite. Quartzsite is known as the winter RV capital of the world. Hundreds of thousands of nomads and retirees converge each season for gem shows, swap meets, and temporary community. What most coverage misses is that it functions as a year-round town for people who figured out what that seasonal infrastructure actually provides on a permanent basis. The wholesale solar equipment market operating through Quartzsite's seasonal shows makes it one of the cheapest places in the American West to acquire and maintain off-grid systems. Experienced off-grid technicians rotate through every winter, and many return regularly. The community knowledge base around well systems, solar arrays, battery banks, and desert water management is deeper here than in almost any other rural Arizona town. For a retiree who wants the full off-grid infrastructure ecosystem without sourcing expertise from a distance, Quartzsite removes the self-reliance burden. La Paz County's rural agricultural zoning applies. Summer months are dramatically quieter, which suits some retirees and doesn't suit others. But the retiree who finds community in the off-grid world will find a density of shared knowledge here that no other town on this list provides. Wenden. Wenden sits on Highway 60 in La Paz County, between Salome to the west and Wickenburg to the east. It's a small community rather than a full-service town, and its land prices reflect that. 2-acre parcels in the area appear in listings around $29,900, with direct highway frontage included in that price rather than added as a premium. That last detail is worth pausing on. Road access is one of the most reliable cost inflators in rural Arizona land. A parcel with maintained road access and highway proximity in La Paz County would ordinarily command more than raw desert land in the same county. Wenden's price point suggests that demand simply hasn't materialized to reflect what that access is worth in practical terms, which is the same demand vacuum that keeps Salome and Bouse affordable and shows no signs of reversing. The case for Wenden is positional. For a retiree who wants the La Paz County off-grid cost structure, the rural, agricultural zoning, the strong solar conditions, the established hauled water and septic infrastructure ecosystem, but who also needs reliable highway access for medical appointments, supply runs, or regular visits to Phoenix area family, Wenden threads that needle. Salome and Bouse offer more acreage at lower prices, but they sit deeper into the desert with less direct road connectivity. Wenden trades some of that acreage for a position on a major east-west corridor at a price that doesn't penalize you for the convenience. The off-grid infrastructure math from the surrounding La Paz County locations applies here without modification. Arizona's 7 to 8 peak sun hours, the hauled water model, the anaerobic septic setup, all of it functions identically on a Wenden parcel. The difference is simply where you are when you finish building it. Golden Valley. Golden Valley sits in Mojave County between Kingman and Bullhead City, close to the Nevada state line. Lots here run 2.5 to 5 acres as a standard, and a manufactured home on several acres can be found for under $150,000. The structure is the baseline. The solar and land combination is the actual financial story. Mojave County's solar conditions are exceptional. An array here operates near maximum annual efficiency. The path from a manufactured home with utility bills to one without is a single installation decision. Nevada's border, a short drive across the Colorado River, provides access to a no-income tax state for appliances, hardware, and larger purchases that compound in savings across years of retirement. Water demands honest calculation. The water table in Mojave County regularly requires drilling 500 to 800 feet, with total well costs running between $15,000 and $30,000. The cistern and delivery alternative converts that one-time cost into a manageable monthly expense and eliminates the geological uncertainty, an established practice for many existing Golden Valley residents. Douglas. Douglas is at the southernmost end of Cochise County, directly on the Mexican border, running two economies simultaneously. The domestic side, a historic border city with full municipal services and a median home value around $168,000. The cost of living runs about 15% below the national average. Property taxes in Cochise County sit at roughly 0.65%, about 36% lower than the national median. The cross-border side is what changes the calculation. Agua Prieta, directly adjacent across the border, offers dental care, prescriptions, and groceries at prices 40 to 60% below domestic levels. Healthcare and food are the two largest budget lines in a retirement after housing. Cutting both by nearly half without leaving your general area is a structural financial advantage that no state incentive program replicates. Arizona's senior valuation protection applies here as statewide. Homeowners over 65 with household income under roughly $60,000 can freeze the assessed property value used to calculate taxes for renewable 3-year periods, turning the annual tax bill into a fixed, predictable number. The local aquifer carries active management area designation, meaning state-level monitoring of groundwater use, important for a retiree planning 20 to 30 years in the desert. Globe. There is a pricing premium attached to mountain towns in Arizona, and it is not subtle. Sedona charges it, Prescott charges it, Flagstaff charges it. The premium reflects sustained demand from second home buyers, resort infrastructure built to serve them, and a short-term rental market that converts residential inventory into hospitality product, all of which push prices to levels that a retiree on fixed income can't sustain across decades. Globe, tucked into the rugged hills of Gila County about 90 minutes east of Phoenix, is a copper mining town that never made that pivot. It stayed what it was, a working community with older housing stock, a historic downtown, and direct access to the Tonto National Forest on 3 sides. Average home values sit around $225,000 against an Arizona statewide median of roughly $422,000. That discount exists because Globe has no resort economy generating speculative demand, not because it lacks what makes mountain towns appealing. Tonto National Forest access on 3 sides is functional financial infrastructure. Free hiking and outdoor recreation replace the paid amenities that resort communities build into their HOA structures. Low-cost woodcutting permits let residents harvest firewood legally from the forests, a real and recurring offset to heating costs every winter. Globe has a regional medical center, which removes it from the too remote category for most retirees and changes the practical calculus of a long-term location commitment in ways that the price tag alone doesn't convey. The community texture in Globe developed from mining industry roots and multi-generational local families. It wasn't designed to attract second home buyers or lifestyle retirees, and it shows in the way that places built for actual living rather than for selling tend to show. Globe doesn't engineer authenticity, it has it, quietly, from a history that was built for something else entirely. Winslow. Winslow is a railroad town along Interstate 40 in Navajo County, and it has operated as one for over a century. Freight logistics have anchored the local economy ever since the Santa Fe Railroad came through in the 1880s. That foundation, unglamorous, stable, not correlated with tourism or speculation, is precisely what makes Winslow work as a retirement location. The median home value sits around $191,000. Full municipal services are in place: city water, sewer, trash pickup, high-speed internet. You don't build anything in Winslow. You buy a house, move in, and pay utility bills below the national average because the high desert climate reduces annual HVAC load, and the local economy never inflated enough to mark up services. Nothing is driving demand upward here. No second home buyers, no short-term rental operators, no speculative investors. A farmhouse at around $191,000 is unlikely to spike or crash unpredictably. For a retiree living on that asset's equity across decades, that steadiness carries real financial value that a simple price comparison doesn't fully capture. Interstate 40 access puts the Mogollon Rim within reasonable driving distance. Flagstaff, hospitals, cultural institutions, year-round amenities is reachable without paying Flagstaff property taxes, which reflect a median home value running roughly double Winslow's. Retirees in Winslow access a significant portion of what makes northern Arizona worth living in, from a price base that reflects none of the demand those destinations generate. Florence. Florence sits halfway between Phoenix and Tucson in Pinal County, and it represents a version of affordable retirement that doesn't require building anything, learning off-grid infrastructure, or crossing a border. The town itself carries a historic residential area, but Florence's real retirement story runs through its planned communities. Subdivisions like Vista Hermosa, where single-family and manufactured homes and age-restricted 55-plus developments are available in the $179,000 to $180,000 range. The mechanism is collective efficiency. Volunteer-led homeowners associations and developments like Vista Hermosa keep monthly fees manageable while providing shared amenities. Social centers, nature access, communal recreational infrastructure. Those costs are distributed across hundreds of households, which means each individual household accesses a higher standard of shared facilities than they could independently afford on a standalone basis. A retiree living in Florence inside one of these communities gets recreational and social infrastructure without the full private cost of maintaining it. Florence's overall cost of living runs about 5% below the national average, with housing and utility costs particularly favorable given the flat topography and efficient service delivery of a planned community layout. The town is close enough to the Phoenix metro for specialists, airports, and family visits, but priced like somewhere much farther away. For the retiree who values community structure, organized amenities, and the predictability of a managed environment without the premium that larger branded 55-plus developments charge inside the metro, Florence sits in a useful middle ground that doesn't get much attention from outside Pinal County. Eloy. Eloy sits in the agricultural flatlands of Pinal County, south of Casa Grande and north of Tucson, surrounded by cotton fields and open desert. Home values average around $264,000, and the cost of living runs 13% below the national average. One of the steeper discounts on this list, and one that applies broadly, not just to housing. The land use pattern in Eloy trends toward homestead and ranch configurations. Parcels large enough for a small-scale agricultural operation, a few animals, a garden, outbuildings, room to breathe, are available at prices consistent with the rural Pinal County market. For retirees who want the physical and practical texture of a working rural property without the extreme remoteness of La Paz or Apache County, Eloy offers that middle ground. You can keep chickens, grow a garden, and run a modest homestead without being 2 hours from the nearest hospital. That last point matters more than it might seem early in a retirement. Eloy's proximity to both Phoenix and Tucson keeps specialist healthcare, regional airports, and urban amenities within practical driving distance. A factor that carries increasing weight over a longer retirement horizon as medical needs become more frequent and less predictable. The 13% cost of living discount doesn't require any off-grid infrastructure investment or cross-border strategy to access. It's simply what the local market produces, applied across housing, utilities, and goods broadly, on a fixed income where every percentage point compounds across years of living. That steady gap from the national baseline adds up in a way that more dramatic but less consistent saving strategies don't always match. Eloy doesn't carry a single dramatic mechanism the way Douglas or Salome do. What it carries is quiet, durable affordability in a rural agricultural setting with enough proximity to the state's urban infrastructure to make a long retirement genuinely practical. Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista's median home price of around $262,000 is among the higher figures on this list. The reason it belongs here isn't the bottom of the price range. It's what keeps the price from running away and what that ceiling means for a long-term financial plan. Fort Huachuca, a U.S. Army installation that has operated continuously in Sierra Vista for well over a century, anchors the local economy. Military and government employees generate steady year-round housing demand that isn't correlated with tourism cycles or speculative investment. The result is a market that stays affordable because demand is predictable, and the investor pressure that inflates resort-adjacent markets never materializes. No speculative wave, no short-term rental conversions reshaping neighborhoods, no second home buyers bidding up inventory. For a retiree on fixed income, that stability has direct financial value. A home purchased in a government-anchored market carries a different long-term risk profile than the same purchase in a discretionary demand market. The ceiling on demand is also a ceiling on volatility, and volatility in your primary housing asset is the last thing a retirement plan needs. The unincorporated communities east of Sierra Vista, Hereford and Palominas, offer 2 to 10 acre rural parcels with views of the Huachuca Mountains at prices consistent with rural Arizona land, rural in character, close enough to Sierra Vista's commercial infrastructure for daily practicality. The overall cost of living in Sierra Vista runs about 7% below the national average. Sierra Vista sits at approximately 4,400 feet. Summer heat is moderated, winters stay mild, and annual HVAC costs are materially lower than in the low desert locations on this list. High-speed internet is widely available. Veterans carry the additional advantage of proximity to Fort Huachuca's medical infrastructure and the established VA system. What Sierra Vista offers is a reliable market, a mild climate, and a cost structure built on the most boring possible foundation. A federal installation that has been there for over 100 years and shows no credible signs of leaving. 15 towns: Willcox, St. John's, Concho, Sanders, Salome, Bouse, Wenden, Golden Valley, Quartzsite, Douglas, Globe, Winslow, Florence, Eloy, Sierra Vista. Different mechanisms, different trade-offs, different types of retirees. What connects them is the same underlying architecture. None are cheap because something is wrong with them. They're cheap because Arizona made deliberate structural decisions about how rural land gets regulated, how senior citizens get taxed, how building codes apply outside municipal boundaries, that keep these places financially accessible in ways that most states don't replicate. The senior valuation freeze, the untouched Social Security income, the flat 2.5% income tax, these are standing features of state law. A retiree entering any of these markets can plan around them across a long horizon without worrying they'll disappear next session. The spectrum across these 15 towns reflects what affordable retirement actually looks like stripped of marketing. At one end, Willcox, St. John's, Sanders, Salome, and the Apache and La Paz County model, upfront capital and physical work traded for a monthly cost that barely exists. In the middle, Douglas and Globe and Quartzsite, each running a specific financial mechanism that produces savings without requiring you to build your own infrastructure from scratch. At the other end, Winslow, Florence, Eloy, and Sierra Vista, stable, affordable, and move-in ready for the retiree who wants a cheap house in a functional town without any of the complexity. Arizona's rural markets offer a cost floor that most states can't match. The tax structure protecting it was specifically designed for the people most likely to need it. The 15 towns on this list are the proof that it works, quietly, without much advertising, and available to anyone willing to look past the resort corridor.